First things first. The reports we have about this surah, they're not conclusive, but most likely, or high likelihood, this was given to the Prophet ﷺ in the 5th year. So he's been a prophet for 5 years when this surah came. And by this time, they've started to become very hostile. Some seerah historians argue that the first 3 years or so, or 2 years, the Prophet ﷺ was giving da'wah, but he was giving it one-on-one. He wasn't going in public, and he wasn't out in the marketplace and things like that. It was one-on-one. People were being talked to about Islam, and it was kind of underground. And then from 3, 4, and 5, things started becoming more public. And as they started becoming more public, the response of Makkah started becoming more and more and more aggressive. So we're now in the middle of the early part of the aggression of Makkah when this surah came. An interesting event happened. Now, one of the things that the Quraysh used to do when the Prophet used to recite the Quran, they used to start making noise. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Or somebody would start singing a song. Or they would pay women to start a concert while the Quran's going on. لا تسمعوا لهذا القرآن وألغوا فيه. So in the middle of the market, women would start dancing and singing, and all the crowd would go over there. Don't listen to this Quran and create distraction when it's being recited. لعلكم تغلبون. So you can win. So the Quran was being ignored, right? And if somebody hears the Quran, they start making noise so you don't hear it, right? But then 2 years into this aggression, Allah gave the Prophet ﷺ Surah An-Najm. وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. And something strange happened. The Prophet was reciting this surah, the whole surah, at one time. It's a long surah. He recites the whole surah, and nobody stops him. Nobody stopped him. Nobody made noise. They were all like, huh? What? And they started listening. And check this out. عن ابن عباس أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سجد بالنجم. Ibn Abbas reports that Rasul صلى الله عليه وسلم did sajda at the end of Surah An-Najm, because the last ayah of Surah An-Najm is a sajda. So he fell into prostration. وَسَجَدَ مَعَهُ الْمُسْلِمُونَ. And the Muslims did sajda with him. وَالْمُشْرِكُونَ. And the mushrikun fell into sajda. The Quraysh fell into sajda. وَالْجِنْ وَالْإِنس. And jinns and human beings. Anybody who heard the surah fell into sajda. Even the mushrikun who used to make noise. This happened in what year reportedly? The 5th year. وعن عبد الله أن النبي قرأ سورة النجم فسجد لها فما بقي أحد من القوم إلا سجد. The Rasul ﷺ recited Surah An-Najm. He did sajda himself. No one was left in all of Makkah that in the audience except that they fell into sajda, except one guy. One guy didn't do sajda. فأخذ رجل من القوم كفا من حصباء أو تراب فرفعه إلى وجهه. Instead of doing sajda, he took some dirt and he put it on his head and said, that's enough for me. I'm not going to put my head down on the dirt will come up to my head. That was his reaction. But everybody else fell in, even people who don't believe, fell into sajda momentarily. Okay. So now, يكفيني هذا. He said, this is enough for me. قال عبد الله فلقد رأيته بعد قتل يعني بعد قتل كافرا متفق عليه. Some say this was Umayyah ibn Khalf, others say other things. Then we saw that this person was killed later on. He died a violent death. Anyway, this is a big problem. Because the Quraysh, the elders of Quraysh, keep spreading, don't listen to this Quran. This man is insane. This man is wasting your time. He's just a poet. And now everybody has done what? So they can't keep campaigning against Islam when they all sort of Islamed for a few minutes. This is looking pretty bad. This is very bad. So they had to come up with a solution to this incident. Because this is not just one person or two people. This is everybody. So here's what happens. And this is my understanding of these events. You're free to disagree, but to the best of my ability, this is how I understand these events. They had to come up with a solution to this problem. And in this surah, later on, Allah will say, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى. Allah will say, have you seen your false gods? They had different idols, right? 3 of those gods were named in the Quran. Lat, Manat, Uzza. 3 of them, Allah named them and said, you think these are Allah's daughters? And you know what they did? They went around and they said, no, 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 no. We didn't do sajda because of the Quran. The Prophet was saying, Lat, Manat, and Uzza are good. He said, Inna shafa'atahum turtaja. Their intercession will work. They can save you on Judgment Day. So the Prophet compromised and he was okay with 3 of our gods. He even mentioned them in Surah An-Najm. Did the Prophet mention those 3? Did Allah mention those 3 gods in Surah An-Najm? Yes. Did he say that they're going to intercede on your behalf? No, they made that up. And this became famously known as the satanic verses. This became, oh, the Prophet momentarily agreed with Lat, Manat. He never agreed. They had to come up with an alt facts campaign. They took 3 of the words in the surah, made up their own ayat, spread them, and the rumor spread far and wide to some of the Muslims who were living in Abyssinia, heard the rumor. That's how good the rumor machine was. And they said, oh, the Prophet has compromised with the Quraysh. You can come back now. He's made a deal with them because if you accept some of their gods, you've made a deal. So some of them started coming back because of the rumor. That's how powerful the rumor machine was. And I won't dignify the idea of the satanic verses and whether it's legitimate or not, because for any real academic, not even a believer, any real academic that studies the subject, looks at the text, looks at what they're claiming, it doesn't add up at all. The most plausible explanation, which is absolutely convincing, is this incident was too big of an embarrassment for them, so they had to create a smear campaign against the Quran. And that's what they came up with, you know? So this is one incident that you should know about that was related to Surah An-Najm.